For your project, we've literally decided that we're going to do something to keep track of a volleyball tournament, and we realized we're choosing only one section, a small component of the tournament management system. All we know is we want to keep track of the teams and which players play for each team. So we want some form of interface that's going to work for this. So what you're going to do is we're going to first come up with our player, and then we've got team. So for our player class, we know we would have, I'm just going to merge it here, we have a class called player. We would then list the fields, and that would also be merged and centered. And then we would, in the fields that we want to list, is first of all we would dictate that all of them are going to be private for hello. So they're all going to be minus. Does that kind of make sense? So we would dictate they're private. You would then give data types. Whenever you list fields, you also list the data type in there. And Excel actually works out being quite nice to do this. So the fields data types. Firstly, yes, we need to keep track of date of birth, but you would actually use a field called date. There's a data type or class that you can use called date, but date is difficult to manipulate, and technically it's never examinable, but you might be able to use it in your matric project. But a date manipulation can be challenging. So we're literally just going to store it for now, the date of birth, as a string, just so we can display it. We're not going to manipulate the day, month, years, etc. That can be tricky. So I'm not going, for our scenario, I'm happy for you to dumb down the actual data types and things to ones you've learned. Do you guys get that? Okay, well, what else would we want to keep track of? Of the people who are playing for our team. Okay, we would want names, so string name. Now, ironically, gender, fields should be small case, my bad for calling name. Now, I also don't like calling things name. That's a bad naming convention. So I'll call full name. Gender, ironically, I could make a data type called Boolean.
Either it's true or false.
True or false, or data type CHAR, which would mean it would be a single individual character. So, for example, M or F. So CHAR is a char data type, or you could have Boolean, which is a other data type. Right now, we predominantly we've been working with ints or strings at the moment, haven't we? So in this case, I'm going to, just so we can stick with the data types we have worked with, we haven't worked with Boolean or char yet, so I'm not going to add it in. I'm just going to say that it's going to be an int. And in my description, I would say here, I would want a description field of each one. So I would say full name stores the person's full name. And then I would say date of, okay, I'm not going to fill this in, guys, because quite frankly, this is your project, not mine. All right, and then for the gender, I would say 0 represents female and 1 male.
So that's 0 represents female. Oh, that's offensive.
Is it? I think it's technically nothing is one of the most powerful numbers in the world.
No, nothing.
Now, anyway, so in gender, guys, there could be other things that you would take a look at, but you would look at your system and you would go, okay, for my entity, this is what I would want to keep track of. Do you guys get that? And you would choose on how you want to be as comprehensive as possible in the fields, because it's just a matter of different fields. You would then create your constructors. I would expect, at least from all of you, a default constructor. So default constructor, sorry, these are your now methods. So after your fields, you would list your methods. And all of you should be expected to do, so here we've got, it would be a plus sign because it's a method that we want in public, yes. And we would have a constructor. Your constructor always has the same name, open brackets, close brackets. It doesn't return anything. So you would have then your default constructor, and this would initialize fields to default values. Now, we've always made the default values blank or 0 for numbers, right? You guys could choose. Your default value here could be John Smith. Okay, so or whatever it could be. It doesn't have to be that. Now, plus you then have your parameterized constructor, open brackets. We would then say string full name. So this would be only if you receive the full name, nothing else. So this would be then a parameter. You guys get that? I'd give an explanation for each one. So you would say explanations. You would then format this so the borders would look pretty, that kind of stuff. That's not my job. That's your job. This is not my job. I'm not going to be doing that. And then you'd also have then obviously your fully parameterized. You get how I'm doing this now, right? You would then also list each of your setters, you would list your setters, you would list your getters, you would list your toString. You would want a toString as well. Okay, so you list those things there. Now, technically, I'm not going to ask for a method to do something funky because you guys aren't going to. I haven't taught you guys any funky things yet, so I'm not going to ask for that. But I want the basic structure of your one class coming up. And now, I would want 2 entity classes. In this case, a team can have 4 players, right? Every team should have 4 players. It turned out some only had 3, etc. But we're not going to cater for anomalies. We're going to assume the system is perfect. Yeah, I know what assume is. Anyway, so in this case, our team will have the fields wise. Our team would obviously have, what kind of field do you think would have it? It would have a name, wouldn't it? Field would have a name.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll call it a team name. So it'll be string t name.
So wouldn't that be public?
No, these are fields. Why would you make a public? You have setters and getters to access things like that. Your fields, you should hide information unless you want to be able to control who has access to it, who doesn't, and how it can work with it. So in other words, for example, you want to make sure that people will request it from your method, and their method would then modify it or do whatever it needs to. So for example, ensure it's correct case, whatever it might be, and then send it back. Technically, you could argue why not make it public. I don't think it's quite good practice to make your fields public, but yeah. Anyway, now the next one is you would want. Here's where it can get a little bit tricky. Other than the name of the team, what else would you want? Okay.
Number of players.
Yes, but we're assuming all of them have 4. We keep doing it simple, all 4. What we do though is on this game there were divisions. We had a division A and we had a division B. So I'm going to say there int division, and in this case I'm going to write there under my explanation saying division 0 for senior players, division 1 for junior players, kind of, or whatever it might be. Then on from there, I go minus. Then now, the next thing that we got, here we had mixed teams, etc. So don't worry about that. The genders and the actual players. So the players would dictate the gender, etc. But now we're going to do something cool. Damn it, negative tab. This is technically not great programming, but you haven't learned how to do great programming yet, so we're doing it awkward way around. So basically what we've got here is we've got player 1, 2, 3, and 4. So all 4 players are actually in the team. So I've got an entity class with an object of an object we created. So every single one of these players here could be initialized. Do you guys get that? Okay. Now, I've created those. You would give explanations for everything, so I'd expect all of you guys to come up with explanations for everything. So you would come up with explanations for everything. Do you guys get that? So in other words, I would say, yeah, player 1, the first player in the team, the second player in the team, the third player, so forth. Now, you would then have also your methods. Your methods would allow you to get stuff. So I've come up with my class diagrams. So for my project, I would submit these class diagrams, saying I've got these class diagrams, these are the fields I have, this is whatever. You would have to have the following structure for your actual item. So I could do this and I could copy and paste this into Word. But in your Word document, I would expect a basic description of what you're trying to solve. So in other words, I will release the mark sheet because I think I do have an old mark sheet, but I want to update it a bit. But I would give a description. So I would expect for you guys to enter me a summary. You would then go entity classes identified So you would say, I've got the player who is involved in this situation. How? I would like your summary to be quite detailed. You give me the idea of the divisions, you give me the idea of this. So your summary just tells me what my program is meant to achieve. You then would have your class diagrams where you've actually given this class, each field should have a different definition of it, etc. You would then have, you then are going to have your GUI design, and then I expect you to, you would also then submit separately, you would actually put into PDF all your code. And then you would get the last step. I don't even know if we will have time to do the last step, but so the code, and then that would work. You guys get that? Now, what I'm going to do thus far, all I've done is I've designed my GUI, my class diagrams, so team and player. The next step I would do is I'll design my user interface. Now, I do not expect any extravagant user interface. All I'm expecting here is to list the teams, have somewhere where it lists the teams and lists the players. Does that kind of make sense? So all I care about in your, yeah, you can go, is we know in your system, in your particular example, all I want is I want 3 entries that are directly coded into there. So in other words, you're not going to use the input, you're not doing any of that. You make it. You don't have to learn enough to do it well.